We're all taught to climb the corporate ladder. We're all taught to study hard, get good grades, get a good degree, and then work really hard at your job. And what that teaches us to do is to be a good employee. But if you look at the wealthiest people in the world, they're not striving to be the best employee, they're striving to own the most assets. Because there's a limit to what you can earn as an employee, but there's no limit to what you can earn as an asset owner. Now, hear me very carefully here. This doesn't mean that it's bad to be an employee. This doesn't mean you shouldn't be an employee. This means you have to understand how to use your salary the right way. Because what wealthy people do, and the people that become wealthy, they want to use their salary to not just climb the corporate ladder, but they want to own the corporate ladder. That's what wealthy people are working to do. See, what most people are doing, the majority of people, is their sole focus is how can I do this? How can I climb my way up here? That way I can get a bigger raise. And if I get a bigger raise, well, now I can drive a nicer car, I can have a bigger house, and I can kind of live a more nicer lifestyle. But that's the game that the majority of people play, and that's the same reason why the majority of people stay broke or stay middle class. Maybe upper middle class at best. But you don't have any real wealth to show for it. If you stop working, then what? If you take a 2-month vacation, then what? If you get sick and you can't work, then what? Your salary goes away, but you still have the expenses to pay. How are you going to pay for that? What wealthy people want to do is they want a system where they can own the investments. That way their money can keep paying them even if they don't work. And the way that you do that is by building your financial education to become an investor. That way now, instead of just buying the car, instead of just buying the house, instead of just buying the nice stuff, you take your money to buy the investment, to buy the business. Now you're going to say, well, Jaspreet, I'm not a billionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a 100,000-aire. How am I supposed to do that? You don't need a lot of money to start. You can start doing this with as little as $100, even less than that nowadays. But you have to get started. And that means now when you make money, the key is to use that money to buy investments, to buy assets, because these assets will keep paying you even when you're not working. Let me show you why this matters so much. What I learned is that there are 3 different entities in our economic system. You have the C, the I, the B. You have the consumers, the investors, and the business owners. And this isn't something that somebody told me. These are things that I had to learn myself because I grew up in a traditional Indian house. My parents are immigrants from a state in India called Punjab. And growing up, I didn't learn about investing. I didn't learn about financial education. I didn't learn about entrepreneurship. I didn't know what rental properties were. I didn't know what dividends were. I was told that if you want to become successful, there's one path to doing so, and the path is by becoming a doctor. Actually, my parents were generous. They said, Jaspreet, you can either become a doctor or you can be a failure. You get to pick. And so I thought I was going to be a doctor, and then when I realized that medicine wasn't for me, I started to dive into this financial education stuff. My dad said that if you want to keep any pride in the family, you have to at least become an attorney. So I went to law school, studied hard, part-time, while I also continued to dive into my financial education full-time, and I was fortunate enough to graduate law school but never had to work as an attorney because I started to learn how this stuff worked, and I was able to see success in my business. I was able to see success in my investments. And what I've learned is that there are 3 different entities, the C, the I, the B, the consumers, the investors, and the business owners. And the way that our economic system works is consumers go and spend money at businesses. If I go to Chipotle and I want to buy the extra guac, well, I got to go as a consumer to Chipotle and pay them money. Everybody's a consumer. Rich people, middle class people, poor people, every single person is a consumer. Well, who does that benefit? If I'm buying this extra guac, who is benefiting? Yeah, the employees are getting a little bit of benefit because you get your salary, but we know that salaries are capped for most people, right? Unless you have ownership or profit share, most people's salaries are kind of capped, and salaries haven't kept up with inflation for many people. Now, for some people, right, if you were really one of the higher income earners, then maybe you're seeing that big salary growth, but if you look at the average person, you're not. So who's really benefiting? If it's not the employees, it's the owners of Chipotle. And who are the owners of Chipotle? Well, it is the investors in Chipotle. Anybody can be an investor in Chipotle if you understand how the game works. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and invest in Chipotle, but I'm just telling you how the game works. That's part 1. Money flows to the investor. When people spend money, the person that benefits is the investor. The people that benefits is the owner. You don't have to go out and start the business, although I love entrepreneurship. If that's what you want to do, great. But most people should not start a business. But everybody in America or a first world country like that needs to own a business if you want to win in this game. Now, when I say own a business, that doesn't mean you have to go out and start it. It doesn't mean you have to manage it. It doesn't mean you have to work at it. It means you just work to own it. You become an investor. But it gets a little more interesting because now what happens when you see inflation? Well, inflation means I go into Chipotle and now I gotta pay more dollars for that extra guac because inflation has made it more expensive. So now me as the consumer means I am spending more money at the business. We've all seen this in our lives. Well, who are those more dollars now benefiting? Well, if I'm paying more dollars, we know that the employees might be getting a little bit of a raise, but we've seen that the raise generally doesn't keep up with inflation. So who are those extra dollars going to? Well, let's just follow the flow. Those extra dollars are flowing to the owners and the investors. We saw this. I just diagrammed this for you, that not just over the last 5 years, or over the last 50 years, we've been seeing this happen, that investors have been getting windfalls. This doesn't mean that markets only go up. We know that markets crash. We know that recessions happen. In the last 100 years, we have seen 16 recessions. Those recessions hurt investors for a period of time. Over those last 100 years, we also saw 25 bear markets. Those are essentially stock market downturns, down stock market periods. Those down periods hurt investors, but they also create investment opportunities for the financially savvy, because when investments go on sale, you can go out and buy a good investment at a discounted price. But we know that inflation, in general, has helped the value of investments, which makes investors richer while the average person is the one that's paying the price. It's consumers that are paying the price, but the average person is only a consumer. The average person is not a business owner. The average person is not an investor. And this is where you got to understand the game. Our system is designed to benefit investors. It's not designed to benefit employees. It's not designed to benefit consumers. But we're all taught to be an employee. It's not bad to be an employee, but you got to understand the game. That's how you get your salary, and now you got to take that salary and turn it into assets. You got to take the salary and turn it into ownership. That way you can turn that salary into real wealth. But that's not all. I went to law school. I don't work as an attorney, but I spent a lot of time studying the tax code. And what I learned is that our tax code is designed specifically to benefit certain people more than others, because all income is not created the same. When you go and earn money from your job versus somebody else earning the money from their investments, you don't pay the same taxes. If you make the same amount of money, you'll pay very different amounts of taxes depending on how you earned that money. Because our tax code says that when you are an investor, you can qualify for either A, bigger tax breaks, or B, lower tax rates. Versus when you are just an employee, you pay the highest tax rates. It's called ordinary income. Others call it earned income. That's the bucket that it falls into. And you also get the lowest tax breaks. And if you don't believe me, I also keep a copy of the Federal Income Tax Code in my office because, yes, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and you can see how complicated this book is. It is 2,000 plus pages long, 8-point font, and the reason why there's so much stuff in here is because it talks about all the different tax breaks, all the different deductions that you can qualify for that you don't get as an employee. This is why, again, it is so important for you to build your financial education. That way you can actually become an investor and profit from the system instead of being the person that's making everybody else in the system rich. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.